Welcome to the Cyclical Doula Podcast. I'm Emma, a certified Sympto-Pro instructor, a fertility awareness educator, and your guide to fertility coaching and reproductive health education from menarche to menopause and all the different types of motherhood in between. If you're seeking a natural, science-backed approach to managing your fertility, understanding your cycle, or simply connecting with your body in a new way, you're in the right place. Each episode is designed to empower you with the tools, knowledge, and confidence you need to thrive in your unique journey. Quick disclaimer, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice or individualized charting support. For specific guidance, please consult with your healthcare provider or fertility awareness instructor. Now, let's dive into today's topic.
Welcome to the space where cycles breathe, where the real raw life of a mama leads. From motherhood's highs to charting the low, your body's story is the star of the show. Matriarch heart.
Welcome back to the Cyclical Doula Podcast. Today, I'm here with Terri Kozlowski. She is an author, a speaker, and a soul-centered life coach who helps women move from fear and disconnection into deep self-trust and embodied authenticity. Terri is a proud Native American woman from the Athabascan Tlingit Raven Clan, and she weaves her spiritual heritage into everything she teaches. Her work bridges emotional awareness, mindfulness, nature wisdom, and feminine flow to help women return to their inner truth, whole, worthy, and wonderfully cyclical. Terri's own healing journey is one of reconnecting with her body after trauma, reclaiming her inner wisdom, and learning to listen to the signals she once ignored. Now she guides other women through that same reconnection, teaching them that our bodies aren't obstacles, they're sacred messengers. I'm so honored to have her here today. Terri, welcome.
Thank you, Emma. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit more for people who don't know who you are, who you are and what is outside of your title and your roles, but just who you are as a human being.
I am a product of child sexual trauma. My mother abandoned my sister and I on the streets of Albuquerque because she was an alcoholic and a drug addict. And growing up at the age of 11 like that, because I had to take care of my baby sister and try to figure out how to get home to my dad, which was 3,000 miles away at the time. So when you go through any sort of trauma, especially as a child, you stop growing at that point and you disconnect from who you authentically are, because everybody comes into this world knowing exactly who they are, what their purpose is, and that is to love and be loved. That is everyone's purpose. However, we come into our first unknown, which is our family, and it starts getting messy. And one of the things I did was I had to learn to not react to things that were happening around me. And what most people do is they stuff. And I was a very good stuffer, stuff my emotions. And in doing that, we turn off the signals that our body gives us. And in doing that, it took me to get peritonitis before I finally realized, oh, wait a second. So when I got pregnant, I ended up being pregnant for 10 months because I realized that I was codependent and I did not want to pass on any generational things to my child. So I gave birth late. There was meconium in the water, which meant that immediately I actually this would have been back in the early 90s. I had a natural childbirth. I had all kinds of natural things, but it was in a hospital setting, mainly because I was 10 months pregnant. And when they broke my water, because I went into natural childbirth and then it stopped. And they were going to induce 2 days later, and they were actually going to send me home. And I said, no. In 2 days, you're going to do this anyway. So I'm here. Let's just get this over with. And they broke the water. There was meconium in the water. Therefore, neonatal had to be in. They threw him up on my chest. And I said, hello. And they whisked him off. And then it took about 5 hours before the placenta finally gave way, which it actually really didn't, because 8 weeks later I was having a D&C because I was hemorrhaging like crazy for 8 weeks. Had I not been
Mm,
breastfeeding, I would have probably died from the amount of blood that I was losing. And
yeah.
at the time, I was 5'2" and 98 pounds. So I did not have a whole lot of extra anything because,
Yeah.
and my son, as you know, when you breastfeed, that baby's getting everything you can give
Yeah,
to it.
absolutely.
And he was nursing every 2 hours like clockwork. So I was not sleeping. And during this time period, I started feeling my body. And what I mean by
Hmm.
that is I started recognizing that certain signs that, okay, he's snapping. Maybe I should sleep too because I haven't
Yeah.
slept. And it was that started the process of me paying attention to my body. And then life happens and you have a toddler. And then as life continues on, you start stuffing again because
Hmm.
you can't deal with a child and also then deal with your own emotions.
Right.
And it's a difficult balancing act, and therefore I ended up with appendix that ruptured. And still, I mean, literally, I am something's wrong. I don't know what it is. My body's telling me I need to go to the doctor. I didn't. And
Hmm.
we were supposed to go on a camping trip, and I decided not, my husband said, no, you need to go to the doctor. I went to the doctor and they touched right on my side. And next thing I was known, I was in the hospital and wheeling me off but before medical sometimes can be a long process when they know what's wrong and they don't do anything because they want to confirm and have tests and have the insurance company pay
Right.
for the tests.
Right.
So they were having a CAT scan. And they waited the 2 hours for you to drink all the lovely stuff for the CAT scan.
Yeah.
And near the end of me drinking everything, I threw it all back up. They wheeled me in to get the CAT scan. And literally, as the CAT scan is going, my appendix ruptures. So they have
Oh
lovely
no.
pictures of my appendix rupturing on the CAT scan. And they're wheeling me off for emergency surgery at this point. And then again, they pause because now they have to verify I'm not pregnant. I'm not pregnant. I'm on the pill. I'm not pregnant. I'm on the pill. And still, I signed a waiver. They still had to wait until they got the
Yeah.
test result to actually go in and try to clean out the ruptured appendix. I ended up going home. I was in the hospital for a week, went home for a week, ended up with a fever, ended up back in the hospital for another week with peritonitis. And then I was
Hmm.
on IV antibiotics at home for 3 weeks. Then I was I mean, you could have thrown anthrax on me and I would not have been able to get sick with the amount of antibiotics I was on.
Yeah.
Burnt out my fingertips and my toes. I had neuropathy for a long time afterwards because of the amount of antibiotics I was on. And
Right.
that process made me realize that your body is always giving you signals and you need to pay attention,
Hmm.
or it will explode on you. And then it will force you to stop everything to
Yeah.
deal with your health. And
Hmm.
so that was my wake up call. And I tell my story because I think it's really important that women don't go that far by
Yeah.
ignoring the signs of their bodies. And their bodies is always speaking to them. You just have to start attention for the sign. If you're waking up every day with a headache, there's something going on and you need to pay attention. You know,
Yeah.
if you're getting up with a kink in your neck every morning, maybe you need to figure out a different way of sleeping, maybe change your pillow. There's all kinds of things that you can do to get your body to relax and to
Hmm.
get a restful night's sleep. And most women don't sleep well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that to like get us started with this conversation. Um, Tell us a little bit more about your like work and what you do now and how like your experience led to what you're doing now with your work.
So when I was pregnant, was codependent, and I needed to figure out how to start healing myself from the wounds that I had. And I went through the process of what I thought was that healing process. And
Yeah.
most people don't realize healing process isn't a 1, 2, 3, you're done. It is
Mm-hmm.
a journey. And
Yeah.
it is a journey that is a lifelong journey, because there are things that when you think, okay, certain things that I'm afraid of that and I'm now over with. So, for example, my the 3 men that raped me when I was 11 were Hispanic men. So I naturally had a fear of Hispanic men, especially in groups. And so as I got older, it's always amazing how the universe puts in our path those things that need we need to help heal us. And I ended up
Yeah.
working in a company that was full of Hispanic men. And I learned that they were very caring, loving, um, empathetic, compassionate human beings, and I should not be judging all Hispanic men by the 3 that I encountered at 11.
Mm-hmm.
Also, as an adult, I have different ways to deal with things that I'm fearful of versus that of when I
Right.
was 11. And so you have to start reframing that traumatic story that you keep telling yourself, I'm afraid of Hispanic men, into things like, now, even though I see a Hispanic group of men walking towards me, my ego still reacts to it. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
job of the ego. And that's what one of the things that people don't realize is the ego is never going to tell me that when I see Hispanic men that it's safe. That's not the
Right.
ego's job. The ego's job is
Right.
to say, hey, watch out. It's my job to say, thank you for letting me know that. But I now know that Hispanic men can be very safe and compassionate and loving people, and I'm no longer afraid, and keep moving on. So when you
Right.
go over something big like that, you think, okay, I'm not afraid anymore. But then other things come up that you
Mm-hmm.
don't realize. So my mother was an alcoholic. So me being around a lot of drunk people is very triggering for me. And
Yeah.
it took a long my mother was a very mean, nasty drunk. And it took me a long time to realize that people can be drunk and be happy, very,
Mm.
you know, energetic and fun loving
Yeah.
people. They don't have to be mean and nasty like my mom. And it
Right.
took a long time for me to realize that the signals that your body gives you when you're fearful, that you keep pushing down, you need to release that fear. You need to,
Mm-hmm.
and then also talk to your ego, because your ego will say, okay, these people are out of control. You don't know what's going to happen. And I don't, but I'm an adult. I can leave if I feel uncomfortable. I
Right.
can't, there are other things that I can do so that I am not fearful anymore. And it's
Mm-hmm.
retelling those stories in empowering ways and the reframing. And that's what I help people do. I help people realize that the story they're telling themselves over and over and over again reinforces the trauma and not
Yeah.
necessarily empowers them to overcome. And
Mm-hmm.
that's that transition. That's the alchemy that I use and the transformation work that I help other people realize that their story can be told in a way that's empowering to them and
Yeah.
allow them to release and feel those negative emotions. Because if you hold on to them and push them down, you end up with peritonitis.
Yeah.
Which is
Right.
what happened with me. That's,
Yeah.
I very much know that me pushing down the emotion, me not letting them rise up,
Mm-hmm.
me not feeling them ended up all in my abdomen. And I used to have stomach issues, and I was doing that to myself.
Yeah.
And the body holds trauma, the body holds anger, the body holds resentment, the body holds all emotion. But the negative ones are the most difficult ones for us to release because society doesn't like us to release them.
Mm-hmm.
Society doesn't like to see us crying. Society is okay, however, if we're angry.
Yep.
Anger is
Yeah.
okay to come out. But if you
Mm-hmm.
are crying or sad or, you know, pulling back from things, society doesn't particularly care for that. So
Right.
you stuff those things. And
Hmm.
the reality is everybody wants us to be authentic. Everybody wants us to be ourselves. And
Right.
if ourselves needs to cry, if we need to allow that emotion to come out so that we're not harboring that and building that up so that our body explodes, then that is what we need to do.
Hmm. Hey friend, quick pause before we keep going with today's episode. If you've been curious about learning to chart your cycle, but the whole thing feels just a little overwhelming, I made something just for you. It's my 14-day charting challenge. It's a completely free experience inside my private community. For 2 weeks, you'll have the opportunity to go through simple daily practices that will help you tune into your body's natural rhythms without pressure, without perfection, and without needing to know anything ahead of time. You'll get a chart to use, 3 short, confident building lessons, and a supportive space where you can actually start to understand what your body is showing you. It's all bite-sized and totally doable, even if life feels super full. So if you've been wanting to learn a fertility awareness-based method or just feel more connected to your cycle, come join us. You can sign up at the link in the show notes or going to my website, emma.com, and clicking on the free charting challenge. All right, let's get back to the episode. Yeah, that's so powerful. And I think so you talk about the body being something that's like a messenger for that. And how does that what does that mean for women who are in this like constant state of survival and like not really knowing what her needs are? You shared your story, but what does this look like practically for like women that you're working with, and kind of taking that first step of making that change?
The most common one I see with women is the lack of sleep.
Yeah.
And when we don't sleep, just from a body health level, lack
Mm-hmm.
of sleep causes our body not to release any toxins because that's what
Yep.
happens. That's one of the things that happens when we sleep. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't allow us to heal wounds, which happens when we sleep.
Right.
There's all these things. It doesn't allow any part of our bodies to regenerate the way they're supposed to. Our bodies
Mm-hmm.
are amazing. They're miracles. You know, the ability to watch a wound when you cut yourself and watch it bleed and then watch it stop bleeding as it clots naturally and then watch it scab over because that is the natural band-aid that
Yeah.
our body produces so that that skin can heal. And then when that falls off and then you watch the wound heal all by itself without us
Yeah.
having to do anything to it. But it happens because we rest. It happens because
Mm.
we take care of our bodies. And if we
Yep.
don't do that, then all of that goes aside. Um, for the body to get cancer, it takes 7 different immune systems to fail.
Okay.
And the reality is, for all 7 to fail is pretty devastating for the body.
Yeah.
And sleep happens to be one of those things that it needs to prevent us from getting ill. And
Mm-hmm.
when we don't allow ourselves to sleep, we're really causing our bodies, wreaking havoc on our bodies, and we don't realize it. So, one of the things that I focus on is helping women sleep better. And the way to do
Yeah.
that is I start it's a day process. It's a process that you go through during the day to keep yourself from building and taking on negative energy throughout the day. So I start my day by grounding. And so I meditate and I journal and I do I am statements in the morning because I am is a powerful, powerful tool. If you say,
Yeah.
I am tired, guess what? You're going to feel tired. So you
Yeah.
want to start saying things like, I am energetic for the things that need to get done today. I have the
Mm.
energy and the focus to get those things accomplished that I need to get accomplished. One of the things that I switched in my I am statements was that, I will get done all those things that I need to get done. Not that
Yep.
I want to get done, because our to-do
Right.
list is always this long, and
Yeah.
it's never ending. So we want to make sure that whatever we accomplish in that day was what we needed to accomplish, so that we don't feel bad in the evening. And
Right.
then in the evening, I write gratitudes, and I have a little notebook, and every evening, while I'm watching TV or after the kids have been put to bed, I write down things that I'm grateful for. And I also look for magic signs and wonders during the day. And those always help you stay focused on the positive instead of the negative, because we can all think about the bad things that happened in the day when
Right.
we're and that's the problem with trying to go to sleep. If we don't do that gratitude, we're focusing all the things we didn't get done, tomorrow's to-do list. Why in the world is the child screaming again? We just put it down for
Right.
the third time. And we focus on those things instead of realizing that, you know, we have a lot of positive things that happen during the day. And if we focus on those,
Hmm.
and we change the mindset when we go to sleep, and we drift off into a more restful sleep instead of
Yeah.
having our monkey minds going, going, and going, and never actually getting to deep sleep.
Yeah. How do you think that can like, how do you think moms who have like little ones can implement those same practices? Do you have any tips for that? Because I feel like sometimes when we're not sleeping as parents, when littles are up all through the night, or like how do we implement those same things in that stage of life?
You focus on those 5 or 10 minutes. You don't try to
Yeah.
get an hour. You don't try to work in a half hour.
Hmm.
Start with 5 minutes. Five
Yeah.
minutes is enough to alter your mindset. And that's
Yeah.
all you need. And sometimes all it, if all you can do is deep breathing exercises, just do
Yeah.
that, because the breathing exercises are simplistic. Inhale for a count of 5, hold for a count of 5, exhale for a count of 5. Do that 5 times, and you've reset your autonomic nervous system, which means that
Hmm.
your blood pressure has been lowered, your breathing rate has been lowered, your heart rate has been lowered, and
Right.
therefore you're going to be present for the child, for that little one who only wants your presence. They
Right.
don't they don't want much of anything else. They need to eat, they need a bath, they
Right.
need those
Right.
things, they need their sleep. But the reality is they want your presence.
Yeah.
And if they are being fussy about something, it's a need that's not being met in some way. And all that you need to do is be present to figure out what that need is, because your child,
Hmm.
even babies who can't communicate, do communicate. I
Yeah.
know that my son had different cries for different things. A
Yeah.
different cry when he was hungry. Actually, he sounded like he said "ma," M-A, very long. "Ma" was his cry for when he was hungry, because I was
Yeah.
breastfeeding.
Right.
That's
Right.
where he got his food from.
Right.
And if we tune into those different cries
Yeah.
as parents, that's our job as a parent, is to
Yeah.
tune into those and realize what it is that they need, and what it is that we can provide for them. So, when the child is asleep, I when the child even when the child is nursing, you can, in your mind, do your I am statements. You don't have to write them out. Just, you can do them in your mind.
Yeah.
Um, and those are the times where you're it feels like you're stealing moments, but the reality is
Mm.
those are the moments that you need, so that you can have the energy, you can have the peace of mind that you are doing all that you need to do.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. How do you how do you feel like we can women can move away from like this control or pleasing aspect of just like what our society kind of holds as a continual thing into something that's more authentic and aligned with the work that you do?
So a lot of women work on being perfect, or at least having
Yeah.
the outer appearance of being perfect. And the reality is that's a really low standard to have, because nobody is.
Right.
I try to help women realize that the only thing that they can be perfect at is being their perfectly authentic selves, because that's the way that we were meant to be. And in order to do that, that means you have to take off the mask and armor. And a lot of
Hmm.
women, that perfectionism is a piece of armor that has been
Yeah.
put up so people don't actually know what they're feeling, how they're moving through life because they feel broken for whatever reason. They feel unworthy for whatever reason. And the way I describe it is mask and armor hide the true light and true authenticity of who you are. And that mask and armor, that means there's only little rays of light coming through. And
Yeah.
that's why you feel broken because your
Mm-hmm.
full brightness, your full light isn't shining through. And
Yeah.
therefore, you feel broken because you're hiding bits and pieces of yourself. So, when you take that armor off, when you take the mask off, you allow your full authentic self to be, and then you don't feel that brokenness. You don't feel unworthy because the reality is you are the only Emma Golf that exists. So ultimately, you have to be the most perfect Emma Golf that ever exists.
Yeah.
And therefore, being your true authentic self is exactly what you're supposed to be. And therefore, you are worthy, you are loved, and you are not broken.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. I feel like that's gonna hit for a lot of moms for sure and a lot of women in general. Do you feel like there's consistent things that you see? You talked about sleep being a big part of things that come up for women that you work with, but like, do you see other things, like other subtle clues that if somebody's listening to this podcast, that they're thinking like, ooh, like, what do I need to look for to listen to my body better? To kind of before they get to the extreme of going into the explosion.
One of the big things is making sure that you don't listen to the monkey mind.
Mm,
The monkey mind is your egoic mind doing all the things to keep you small.
yeah.
Okay. Because the ego is meant to protect you. Therefore, it doesn't want you to take bold steps. It doesn't want you to do anything that it means work. And work
Hmm.
it takes work to stay healthy.
Yeah.
That means you have to, if you're going to the gym or if you're taking the baby out for a walk and walking around the block, that means you have to get the baby dressed, you have to get the stroller out, you have to get yourself put together so you can go outside and do that. And those
Right.
are the things that seem to the ego, why even bother? It's
Yeah.
it's kind of chilly out today. Maybe we should just stay in. And all those excuses is what the monkey mind starts doing to keep us small and keeping us living a life that we are not feeling fully a part of.
Right.
And when we do that, we're then silencing the body because the body wants
Mm,
that energy, wants that to go for that walk, wants to go to the gym because it feels better afterwards.
yeah.
And the other part of that is making sure that you are taking those quiet moments for yourself and meditating or journaling whenever, you know, you have that opportunity because that is a way to let out negative emotions. It's a way to remind yourself of the things that you're happy about in your life, as well as making sure that, and I know it's tough, especially for moms with littles, to have some quiet time for themselves to recenter and ground
Yeah.
themselves. Because if they're not recentered and grounded, how can they help their children learn that?
Right.
And for me, it's really important for me to set example for young mothers to get them to understand that taking those 5 minutes or 10 minutes in the morning for yourself isn't selfish. It is
Yeah.
self care. And self
Hmm.
care is vital for moms in particular because they are the ones that tend to hold everything together when everything else is falling apart.
Yeah.
And that is what allows them to do that is that they have that grounding and that center time in the morning, especially for themselves before they start the day. And sometimes that means getting up 5 minutes early before the ruckus starts and,
Yeah.
getting that quiet time. I remember that when I had a bunch of kids in the house, I would get up 10 minutes early and have my cup of coffee by myself.
Yeah.
And whether I sat out on the deck to do it or in the wintertime, I sat by the window and watched the bird feeder. Those were those grounding moments that when everybody started getting up, especially the teenagers who you had to go and drag out of bed,
Yep.
that was that time where I was centered enough that any struggles that I seemed to have that morning didn't really bother me because I had already been centered and knew that I was doing what I knew I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Let's take a quick moment for a little brain break and talk about something different. Have you ever wished someone could just sit down with you and magically tell you when you were going to get your period next? Or maybe tell you exactly which days you can and can't get pregnant? That's the beauty of charting. Once you understand your cycle, it stops feeling like this random guessing game and starts feeling like a pattern you can actually trust. I promise it's not as complicated as it might seem. Your body is already giving you all the clues. You just need someone to show you how to read them. That's exactly what I'm doing right now while finishing my Fertility Knowledge Collective certification. I'm still looking for a few clients to work with me for 3 months of online cycle coaching and charting support. We'll meet virtually, review your real life signs like cervical mucus and temperature, and help you build skills you can use for the rest of your life. And as part of my certification process, this round is pay what you can. So if you've ever thought, I just wish someone would guide me, this is your chance. To get in touch with me, either message me on Instagram at Cyclical Doula or text FKC just so I know that what we're talking about to 854-220-0218. I'll send you the details and we can figure out if this is a good fit for you. Okay, let's get back into the episode. That's awesome. So tell us a little bit more about like what it looks like to work with you and how you are walking women through learning this.
So, for most women, they come to me because they've had some sort of trauma that they haven't been able to work through. And I have clients who have been to traditional therapy for 20 years and never really got in touch with what they were trying to overcome.
Yeah.
A lot of traditional therapy is a lot of talk therapy,
Right.
and it's rehashing. Let's go back and remember when. And the reality is our minds are not the perfect photographic memories we think they are.
Mm-hmm.
And the same story that we say over and over and over again may have slight nuances over time.
Yep.
And the egoic mind perpetuates the negative storyline as much as
Mm-hmm.
possible.
Right.
So I help women realize that they need to alter how they are talking to themselves about either past trauma, just their normal everyday life. If they are very negative,
Yeah.
it's about switching that to get them to understand that if you focus on the negative, you're always going to see the negative. You're always therefore going to be depressed.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And my definition of depression is fear of the past.
Yeah.
And my definition of anxiety is fear of the future. And I really believe there's only two emotions, love and fear.
Mm-hmm.
And the main focus I work on is responding to life from a place of love instead of reacting out of a place of fear. And most
Mm-hmm.
people react out of the place of fear, especially
Yeah.
mothers, because number one, children don't come with a handbook.
No, unfortunately not.
Do not. And I can tell you why they don't.
Right.
They don't come with a handbook because every single child is different than any other child. So
Right.
if you have more than one children, you absolutely know that without a doubt is that they're different. And what worked for the first one may not work for the second one or the third one. And
Yeah.
because of those individual personalities. And that's the great gift of having children is that learning how to recognize and use your talents to spread through the children, not only to find what they're each uniquely suited for, but what works for them, how you
Yeah.
can connect to them at an authentic level, because what connects you to one child may not connect you to another child because
Mm-hmm.
everybody's so different. And, do you know what the five love languages are?
Yeah.
Okay.
But maybe just you could repeat it just in case somebody listening doesn't.
The five love languages are the five major ways that people give and receive love. So for me, my number one is gift giving. That is my husband's fifth.
Yep.
So, and his is acts of service.
Hmm.
So he does all kinds of acts of service for me. And I didn't recognize that that was his love language. And I never got, I got horrible gifts for years. I got horrible gifts. And then we did the love languages. And I learned that me taking out the garbage, which was one of his chores, if I took out the garbage, it meant a great deal more to him than me giving him a gift. And
Right.
then he learned that giving me a nail file that he bought at the hardware store, because I made a comment one time about it, was one of the greatest gifts he ever gave to me, because it wasn't really about the gift. It's about the fact that you're paying attention and using
Right.
their love language to communicate that you're thinking about them when they're not even present. And so when we learn what those five love languages are and how to use those with our children, because so gift giving, acts of service, touch, words of affirmation, and I always forget the fifth one. But we learn for with children that a lot of times you'll have one child that's very cuddly, and that
Hmm.
that is their love language is touch.
Yeah.
So you cuddle with that child more. And then you have other children that, their love language is words of affirmation.
Yep.
And so you have to communicate with them on a different level, and they're not going to come up and cuddle you. They're
Right.
just not.
Right.
Quality time is the other one.
That's, yep, that's the other one.
Um, so my son is quality time.
Yeah.
And I learned a long time ago that if he came and started talking to me, not to interrupt him,
Yeah.
because I may get 2 or 3 hours where if I give him my undivided attention, I get all kinds of information from him that I wouldn't have gotten if I was trying
Hmm.
to ask him 20 questions.
Yeah.
And you have to know that what those different things are with your children, so that you can connect with them in a way that they see and respond to you from a place of love, and that they recognize that you know how to communicate with them in their love language.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. I think that that's like such a important way to sit in the space with our kids of like being able to really see who they are as human beings. And obviously like, that spills over into every aspect of
Mm-hmm.
any interaction with humans. But that can be such a valuable place. And I feel like when we, from what you were saying, like when we're able to be in a space beforehand of coming from a grounded place, because we took that time for ourselves as mothers and as parents before getting into the day, and then also knowing about our what our children's need, like how we can meet our children's needs
Mm-hmm.
beside the
The
things to keep
basics.
the
Yes.
basics, not the above the basic needs, that we can get through the days that sometimes just feel harder by feeding into those things, and remembering that some of the other stuff isn't as necessary to focus on that particular day.
Most children outside of the needs
Yeah.
want you to be present with them.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right?
And what's so difficult to realize is 5 minutes of being fully present with your
Hmm.
child means more to them than the toys you buy them, give to them. That's why story time before bed is so important, because you're spending that quality time.
Yeah.
And those stories that you tell are ones that they will remember that time you spent with them more
Hmm.
than they're going to remember, you know, the Xbox that they played that day.
Right, right.
It,
Yep.
it just really, and one, I do know that the way I was raised was very different than the way I raised my son, and very
Right.
different than how I interact with my granddaughters and my
Yeah.
grandchildren, because I, for me, I was very focused on not repeating generational trauma. So
Right.
it was different
Hmm. Yeah.
than being very present with my grandchildren.
Hmm.
And um, for Thanksgiving, one of our boys came home for Thanksgiving and hadn't been home for a couple years. And I did nothing. I sat with
Yeah.
him all day and
Mm.
we talked and shared and communicated. And then we watched movies together, we ate together, and that is what he needed. That is what I needed. And if I don't see, I'm probably not going to see him for a couple more years. So that it was being present.
Yeah.
And that's all anybody ever wants from another person is their presence. And
Right.
it's difficult for us when we're always rushing. We always feel like
Hmm.
something else needs to be done on our to-do list. And the reality is, other than the basics, making sure everybody's fed and that kind of stuff, your house doesn't even have to be clean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
you know, there's basic things that you can do, but it's less important to get the dishes done. It's better to sit and be present with people because you can always get up the next morning while everybody's still sleeping and do the dishes.
Right.
It's one of those things that you learn. What's more important is the aspect of being present, the aspect of being authentic, and everything else will fall into place.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. Do you feel like there's something that you hope every woman listening kind of remembers about her body or her experience um, through this conversation?
My biggest hope is that every woman understands that they are worthy just as they are. There's
Hmm.
nothing more they need to do. There's nothing more they need to accomplish. And that by taking off the masks and armor and realizing that being your whole authentic self is all anybody ever really wants from you.
Yeah.
And, Emma, you and I are having an authentic conversation. And I didn't beforehand ask you, how do you want me to show up? Who do you
Right.
want me to be?
Right.
And we don't ever ask that of others, but we think, our egoic minds think that we are
Mm.
not worthy enough to be who we authentically are, that people won't like us if we
Right.
are authentically ourselves. And the reality is, if you run into that, they're not your tribe, they're not your people.
Right.
And the people that truly are your tribe are those that you're going to be around and they're happy just to have you present.
Yeah.
Not that you brought the green bean casserole, not that you made a fabulous cake, or every time you see them, you bring them a gift. It really is about being present with them, having one-to-one conversations, and
Yeah.
understanding that who you authentically are is the boldest statement you can ever make when you walk through life. And yet it's the hardest for all of us to do. And at the same time, it's also the easiest because we don't have to think about it.
Right.
There's no thinking about who Terri is supposed to be. I just am.
Yeah. That's amazing. And such a good reminder. Where can people find your information and connect with you specifically?
Easiest place to find me is terrikozlowski.com, TerriKozlowski.com. And I'm across all the social medias. My brand is Soul Solutions, and it is the name of the podcast that I had over 200 episodes on before I decided that I was done podcasting. Uh,
Yeah.
I have, it's also the book series that I have. Raven Transcending Fear is my memoir, which talks about the trauma and how I overcame. And then the Soul Solutions series, the first book is out, Soul Solutions for Awakening Awareness, which is the hardest part of any healing, is that awareness factor. And
Yeah.
then the second book, Soul Solutions for Overcoming Fear and Limitations, is hopefully coming out next year. I'm in the editing process now.
That's awesome. Great. Well, it's been such an honor to talk to you and hear all of your experiences and learn from you too about all of this. So thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Emma. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Cyclical Doula podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much if you shared it with a friend or posted it on Instagram and tagged me at Cyclical Doula. If you've got a question you'd love to hear answered on the show, head over to emma.com/podcast to submit it. And don't forget, leaving a quick review really helps this podcast reach more people. Plus, if you upload a screenshot of your review on my website, I'll send you a special surprise as a thank you. You'll find all the details in the show notes about this show today, and I really appreciate you being here and listening in. I'll see you next time.
Welcome to the space where cycles breathe, where the real raw life of a mama leads. From motherhood's highs to charting the low, your body's story is the star of the show. Matriarch hearts, cycles that speak, charting the truth in every peak. This is the cyclical doula sound, where body wisdom is always found. Matriarch hearts, cycles that speak, charting the truth in every peak. This is the cyclical doula sound, where body wisdom is always found.
Just a disclaimer and a reminder that any guests on the show are views of their own and not necessarily views of Emma LLC or Emma Goff herself. Thanks so much.